Story about a guy I met in a bar yesterday. Amazing guy, really wealthy guy, and I had a chat with him, and I says, if you don't mind me asking, how did you achieve the life that you're now living? I think it's a cool story. I think you might learn a lot from it, and that's what we're going to get into. I'm in the van. I was over at the West Coast surfing for the last few days, and just heading back towards the East Coast now. It's kind of a funny day. You go through really sunny spells and then really heavy showers. But that's the crack. If you're new here, hi, I'm Denny from Bitcoin With Dinny, world's first Bitcoin consulting company, and for the last 5 years now we've been helping people retire early by explaining Bitcoin in a really simple way, answering all their questions, helping them custody their Bitcoin and helping them to build their own Bitcoin pension plans. So I was sitting in a bar yesterday in Lahinch, County Clare. I was on my own. I went in to get a bit of lunch, and I was just having a pint, and then this gentleman came in. He sat beside me. He was in his mid-60s, I would guess, fairly healthy looking, fairly fit looking. And how we initially struck up conversation was, he was wearing a pair of shorts. Now I wear shorts all through the winter. I'm wearing shorts now. I don't mind my legs being cold. In fact, I prefer to have shorts on if it's raining than a pair of long pants, because they just get wet, whereas your legs dry a lot quicker than your trousers will. But I just says to him, I says, Janie, you're not feeling the cold, you're in the shorts. And he got chatting, saying, oh yeah, I prefer to be in the shorts. All the same rationale I would have. And that's how conversation began anyway. And he told me a story. He was out, he was basically on doing a big hike. And he was doing a little hike around County Clare. And he told me he had a house out in Australia that he was then heading to. You know, he's going to go to Australia for their summer, just as the weather's getting bad here. And then he mentioned he had a house in Spain that he just came from. He was doing a bit of hiking in Spain. And I was like, you know, that's pretty cool. This guy must have a few quid if he has all these properties. He's a house in Ireland, house in Australia, house in Spain. And he doesn't do any work. He just goes hiking. That seems to be his life. So we got chatting. I just said, if you don't mind me asking, I says, how did you retire early? Because you told me you've been doing this for the last 10, 15 years. I said, if you don't mind me asking, how did you retire early? What did you do? What was your business? Or how did you achieve this lifestyle? And he says it was by pure luck, Denny. And I was like, okay. So then he told me a story. He went out when he was a young lad in the 80s, and he worked in the mines in Australia, which would have been a high-paying job, okay? And he worked in the mines for, I think, 15, maybe 20 years, working in the mines. And when he got to, you know, around 40, he was retired. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. But then I was scratching my head going, you know, I was just working through it in my head as he was telling me this. I'm like, you work in the mines. I since Googled what an average wage was in Australia in the 80s, and it was 14 grand a year. Okay, now let's say working in the mines he earns double that, so maybe he was on 30 grand a year, and let's say he'd done that for 10 years. That would have meant he saved up. You're not super rich, and you're not going to buy a house in Australia, a house in Ireland, and a house in Spain for 300 grand. So you can see the problem here. He must have done something else. So I had to go back into the story, and I says, all right, cool. So you worked for 10, 15 years in the mines, and you saved up all your money. I said, but clearly you didn't just keep savings, because that money would have been devalued in today's terms. And this guy had no understanding of money, no understanding of investments. As I say, he just got lucky. And I'll explain to you how he got lucky. He was an orphan, okay, homeless. So he always had a desire to be a homeowner. So once he started working in the mines in Australia, rather than saving in money, like most of us do because we don't understand how money works, this guy didn't even understand it. It was just by being an orphan and having a desire to own his property that he bought houses. So with his income, he bought a house in Australia, he bought a house in London, he bought a house in Ireland, he bought a house in Spain, okay? So without knowing it, he chose to save in something that was a better store value. So rather than saving in Aussie dollars or Irish punts, or pounds sterling, he converted his savings back in the 80s, before he understood anything, into property. Now you can imagine buying a property in London in the 80s of the value it's at now. It's likely multiples of millions if it's a nice property close to London city centre, okay? Multiples of millions. Same in Australia. You buy a house in Sydney in the 80s, it's multiples of millions today. Same in Dublin city centre. You buy a house, a nice property in Dublin, it mightn't be multiples of millions, but it's certainly knocking on the door of a million, and it could be multiples of millions, depending on where it's located. So without understanding investing, money, or the route to get ahead in finance, this guy just had this innate hunger or want to be able to say, because of his background and his, where he came from as a kid, being an orphan, he wanted to be able to say, I own this house, I could sleep here, this is my house, there's no debt on this house, okay? And that was how he retired early. That was how he got out of the rat race, because all the property he sits on now, he's a massive property portfolio. Some of them he leverages, he gets income off them. Most of them he just leaves idle so that he can go to them and retire and enjoy his walks. I just thought it was a beautiful story. He was rushing to get a bus there, and here's the irony, multi-millionaire. I love it, okay? Walking around in a pair of shorts and a backpack on his back. Probably has a property portfolio of in around 50 million, I guess, just from chatting to him. Had to rush to get the bus, because the bus back to Doolin was in a couple of minutes. And I love that, because once you reach a certain amount of money, more money doesn't change your life in any way. Once you can satisfy your wants in life, now for some people, but not all of us, some people, their wants in life are extremely extravagant, okay? They want to go to the finest things, they want to own the best things, they certainly don't want to get on a bus, they want to be, and that's fine. But for a lot of us, you realise that, why would travel on the bus is okay sometimes, because you meet people, you have chats. You don't get that if you're just being driven around by your driver. You miss all those opportunities. And that's the thing that a lot of us don't get, that once you hit your financial freedom number, more money doesn't make any difference. Working harder it's not going to change your life in any way, okay? Unless you have a drive to create more money to try and solve another problem, someone else's problem. But when your problems are solved, you don't need more money. And that was so interesting. And I says to him, I was slagging him. I was like, would you not get yourself an old taxi there, chap, or something? And he's like, no, I like the bus, I enjoy the bus, I meet people on the bus. Deadly. And he just backpacks his way around the world, meets people, has chats, and life is good for him. Really interesting. But I thought the crux of the story was just pure luck. He was like, Denny, it was pure luck. I didn't know I was investing in a property in London that it was going to make me, a lot of money in the future. I didn't know that when I bought a house in Sydney, it was going to make me a lot. I just bought them because I wanted to be a homeowner. I was working hard in the mines. I had some money. By saving and live below my means, I could actually just buy. I don't do that anymore. Even if you work in the mines, property is too expensive. That loads of times. And I better give the plug. My workshop later this month. I haven't done this workshop since January. I do a free Retire on Bitcoin workshop. I'm doing these 5 years, okay? It's later this month. Spaces are free. Come along. I'll teach you everything you don't know about Bitcoin, because if you knew about Bitcoin, if you actually understand Bitcoin correctly, you'd understand it. If you use Bitcoin, it's only a matter of time until you retire early, okay? And if you think you understand Bitcoin, but what I've said doesn't make sense, well, then you don't understand Bitcoin enough, okay? And you should come to the workshop. I'll put a link in the description of this video to come to it, or hop onto my Instagram, my website, Bitcoin With Dinny, and you will find a link to come to the workshop. It's free, but spaces will be limited. I imagine this one will be max capacity on my Zoom call, because they always are. And sure, we've 200 people on the wait list already, so they got priority access. But come to it. Come learn about Bitcoin. It's a magical asset. We actually started talking a little bit about Bitcoin, but as I say, then he was interested, but then he had to go on his bus and jump on his bus. So really interesting conversation. I love that about Ireland. And where was I? Last night, no, in the car park I was chatting to a crowd of Dutch guys, and they're doing a van tour. They came to Ireland, they're surfers. And they started in Tramore, and they went to Kerry, they surfed and then they were Ballybunion in Kerry, and now they're up in Lahinch. And they couldn't believe how big Lahinch was and how vibrant it is. It's a real yuppie sort of surf place now. When I used to go to Lahinch, No, you know, there was very few. There was just a few local surfers, and there was no yuppie dubs like us down there. But now it's really vibrant with the local community and the yuppies, the yuppie dubs like myself going over there, and the American tourists and global tourists, European tourists. But these guys were there anyway on the surf trip, the Dutch guys were. And I was chatting to them in the car park. You know, I just walked up and I started talking to people because, I don't know, that's what I do. It's just nice to have a chat to people. You can always learn something. People sometimes say, you know, it's kind of like how, and it's a side tangent, but sometimes people are like, I'm not going to get anything from talking to some surf bum. What's he know? Oh, there's a fella in a fancy car. I'd love to talk to him. I'll give him a big smile because he's rich. Because people treat me very different. Where I step out of my camper van like a surf bum, or where I step out of my car with the fucking Lamborghini doors going up and I'm wearing nice clothes. They treat me totally differently. But I'll talk to anyone. And sometimes it's the surf bums who you get the most from because they have a really different reality and thought process on life that, you know, I've gotten the most value. Like sometimes they're almost like they've kind of got a philosophy mindset on time, on life, on experiences. But anyway, I was talking to these Dutch guys, and the Dutch guys were just like, yeah, I was like, how are you enjoying Ireland? And they're like, yeah, first time in Ireland. Ireland is amazing. She's like, it's so weird here because like this, a stranger will just come up and start talking to you the way I had done to the lads. And they're like, you know, in the Netherlands, this just would not happen. People are more closed. You're not going to talk to strangers. You're going to be much more private. But they liked it, and it was cool. And that's why I love Ireland. That's why I'll always have a home in Ireland, no matter where I go in the future. I'll always have a home in Ireland. I've been to Australia, I've been to other countries, and it's that openness, that friendliness, and since I've been away for a couple of days, do you know the people I've met and talked to? People in bars, people in cafes, people in restaurants, people on the surf promenade, people in surf shops, you know, and you're just conversations, having the crack with them, and that's what it's all about. And I think Ireland is a really unique place. If you live in Ireland, we're very lucky that this is a unique place where people are really open and really happy to talk to each other, and we've got to keep that going. It's up to us, the people, to continue to do that. It's not going to happen by chance. If we think they don't want to talk to us and we don't want to talk to them, we propagate that and we make our culture change. Because you know there's a war in our culture now. There's a war in Irish culture. There's so many people who aren't from Ireland coming in, all right? And I'm not going to give an opinion on that. You can have your opinions on that, but it's up to us, the Irish people, to continue our culture, to try and continue the friendliness, and continue to make this the best place on earth, no matter what the weather's like, no matter what the politicians are like. Okay, look around, get out of the city, come to the west coast. You don't even have to come to the west coast, the south coast, the east coast. I love the coast because I'm into surfing, but there's so many beautiful inland places in Ireland as well. But just getting out of the big cities, getting out of the nonsense, getting out of the noise, and come and experience that. The only reason I wanted money in the first place was so I could come and have these experiences. And the amount of money I need to transition my life and have these experiences, it's nowhere near the figure that people think it is. Okay, because these experiences are quite cheap. They don't really cost you that much money. And truly magical. Love getting away in Ireland. I normally go away to Spain for the last couple of years at this time of year. And this year, for one reason or another, the trip couldn't go ahead. But I'm always happy because it's been so long since I'm been in Ireland this time of year. And getting to see the winter and the change in nature, and getting to come and surf in Ireland instead of going out to Spain and surf, because Ireland's a unique surf spot in that when you go to Spain, you're surfing with like 500 people in the water. And fair enough, loads of them are beginners and they're useless, but they're in the way. Whereas in Ireland, I was out there the other day, there was 4 of us out. There was space for 500, you know, it's the same size break as you would surf in Spain, but there's just very little people. And that's the beauty of Ireland. And that won't change, because Ireland's cold and most people like their comforts. All the Germans, not all the Germans, I shouldn't tar them all with the one brush, but a lot of the Europeans, they think the cold is dangerous and they don't like the cold. So they're never going to come with their camper vans, you know, in their droves to come and surf in Ireland, because they just don't like getting uncomfortable. But getting uncomfortable is good for you. There's a lot of little Denny bombs there. Getting uncomfortable, getting cold is uncomfortable, and getting uncomfortable is good for you. Guys, I hope you got a little bit of value out of this video. Not really Bitcoin specific, just general little story. If you'd like to learn more about Bitcoin, do come to the live event. It's with me, it's live on Zoom, and I'll do a Q&A at the end of it. Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin is for everyone. Bitcoin is super simple. It's not as complex. It's just that if you go on the internet, there's so much, it's information overload. Okay, so you get lost in the weeds. You confuse Bitcoin and crypto as being the same thing. You create your own opinion. Everyone is a hater of Bitcoin before they're a believer. Okay, everyone thinks Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme before they realize it's how they free themselves and how they create generational wealth and how they change the opportunities that their families are going to have in the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years. I was like that too. Come and get the info, it's well worth it. And have a really cool day. Throw a comment in if you enjoyed the video, enjoyed the ramblings. And yeah, there's going to be people today who just stumble into Bitcoin, and rather than saving in euros, they choose to save in Bitcoin. And someone's going to meet them in the bar in 10, 20, 30 years time, and they're going to be multi-billionaires. And people are going to ask them, how'd you do that? And someone will say, well, I met this mad idiot on YouTube waffling on about this Bitcoin thing, so I decided, what about it? I'll just save a little bit of my money in it. And hey, 20, 30 years later, they're multi-millionaires, they're telling the story. I'm absolutely certain that's going to happen. It's going to be a full ride, but as I say to you, on my last finishing thoughts, yesterday I got news that a lady I know all my life, she passed away suddenly. A beautiful, wonderful, amazing, happy, positive lady passed away suddenly. Quite upsetting for me, for the family. You know, I know the family are going through pain. I sat yesterday, I watched the sunset. Sunsets are free. We only get a limited amount of sunsets. None of us know how many we get. None of us know how many more we have left in front of us. But as I sat and I watched the sunset and I just pondered, and it's just like, go get the money, but don't try and get too much money, because you're sacrificing your experiences, you're sacrificing your sunsets. We're all going to go through death ourselves, but also with those we love. So really sad times are ahead. And perhaps some of you guys have experienced them already. You've gone through them already, or maybe you're going through them. And to me, it just hits home. All the Bitcoin in the world is meaningless. It's all the time in the world is what's important to me. And by having a Bitcoin pension plan, it allows me to have my time back, because the current system steals my time. If you don't understand how, it would basically be like that man. If he wasn't homeless, and he did not want to own a house, and he just worked his job, and he saved up loads of money in the bank, and he had a big bank account in Australia with maybe 80,000 back in the 80s, which was a heap of money. Okay, remember, properties were only like 4 or 5 grand in the 80s. No, you could get a property in the 80s for like 15 grand, whatever. But let's say this guy saved up 300 grand and he just left it in the bank, and he retired and he went back and he walked around for 5-10 years. He would have soon scratched his head and realised, oh my God, my money has run out. My money has lost its value. The cost of living has increased so much that I now have to come out of retirement and go back into work as a 50-year-old man. I'm not retired. And that's just because people don't understand the money system. But time is precious, time is the asset. We all have to, we have 2 jobs. You have to have your job to earn the money, and then you have your job to learn how to keep the money. Most people only understand the first job. I teach people how to do the second job. It's the most important job because it gets your money working for you, so you don't have to. Okay, and your money will work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, whereas you can only work 40 hours a week. And that's why the second job is the most important. Guys, hope you have a super day. Hope you have a beautiful day. Let me know in the comments if you like the ramblings, and I look forward to chatting to you all soon. For now, I'll just say, Denny out.